You pause here, and perhaps that pause was not random at all. Perhaps something deeper than thought guided your hand, pulled your attention, whispered at this moment, right now, matters more than you realize. If you are Sagittarius, if you carry that fire, that restless longing for truth, then listen closely, not with your mind, with something older, because what is about to unfold is not comfort wrapped in gentle words. It is not distraction dressed as wisdom. This is something else entirely, a message that has been traveling toward you through silence, through struggle, through every moment you thought no one was watching, and it has finally arrived. You have felt it, haven't you? That strange shift in the air around you, as if the atmosphere itself changed weight, as if invisible hands rearranged furniture in a room you thought you knew by heart. Nothing looks different on the surface. The same walls, the same routines, the same faces passing by. But underneath, in the place where your intuition lives, something moved. Something that had been frozen for so long you stopped believing it could ever thaw. And now it is melting, slowly, inevitably, and you cannot stop it even if you tried. There is a cycle closing around you, Sagittarius. Not a small one, not the kind that shifts with seasons or moods. This is a kind of cycle that takes years to complete. The kind that began when you first learned to swallow your truth to keep the peace, when you first dimmed your light, so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable in their darkness, when you first walked away from something that mattered because stay would have required you to fight, and you were too tired, too confused, too afraid that fighting would only prove you were the problem all along. That cycle, the one that taught you to question your own worth, to second-guess your instincts, to wonder if maybe you were too much or not enough or simply wrong about everything. That cycle is ending, and what comes next will not look like anything you have known before. But here's what you need to understand, and you need to hear this without flinching. What is returning to you now is not arriving in the form you lost it. Life does not work that way. Justice does not knock on your door, holding exactly what was taken, wrapped in the same paper, tied with the same string. No, what returns comes transformed, deeper, truer, stripped of illusion. And sometimes that transformation is so complete that you will not even recognize it as a thing you once mourned. You will only feel its presence. You will only know, in some quiet, unshakable way, that the balance has shifted, that the scales which tipped so far against you for so long are finally leveling out. And you may ask, why now? Why? After all this time, after all the nights you cried in silence, after all the moments you stood in front of the mirror and did not recognize the exhausted face staring back, why does movement happen now? The answer is not simple, but it is true, because you are finally ready. Not ready in the way people talk about readiness, as if it is something you can plan or schedule or achieve through effort. No, you are ready in the way a seed is ready when the ground is thawed just enough. In the way a bird is ready when its wings have grown strong enough to hold its weight against the wind. You did not become ready by trying. You became ready by surviving, by continuing, by refusing to let the weight of it all crush the part of you that still believed, even faintly, that there was something more waiting beyond the fog. There are people in this world who walk through life expecting fairness, expecting that if they are kind, kindness will return. If they are honest, honesty will meet them. If they love deeply, they will be loved in equal measure. And you were one of those people once, Sagittarius. You believed in a world that made sense, a world where effort mattered, where sincerity was recognized, where giving from the heart meant something. And then life taught you otherwise. Not gently, not with patience. It taught you through betrayal, through silence that cut deeper than any argument, through people who took what you offered and walked away as if it meant nothing, through moments when you gave everything and received not even acknowledgement in return. And in those moments, something inside you cracked, not loudly, not all at once, but slowly, like glass under pressure, spreading thin lines of foundation of who you thought you were. You learned to protect yourself. You learned to expect less. You learned to build walls where there used to be open fields. And you told yourself this was wisdom. This was growth. This was what it meant to be an adult. To stop being naive. to stop believing in things that only existed in stories. But deep down, Sagittarius, you mourned. You mourned the loss of that openness. You mourned the person you used to be before the world taught you to be careful. And every time you felt that mourning rise up in your chest, you pushed it back down. Because what good would it do? What would change? The past was the past. The damage was done. And all you could do was keep moving forward, one heavy step at a time, pretending the weight did not exist. But what if I told you that the weight is lifting? Not because you found some magic formula. Not because you finally learned the right lesson, or spoke the right words, or made the right choice. The weight is lifting because the universe, in its strange and patient way, has been watching. It has been keeping account. And there's a law older than any you were taught in school, older than any philosophy or religion, a law that governs the unseen current of existence. And that law is this: nothing is lost. Not truly, not permanently. What is taken from you without reason? What is withheld when you deserve to receive? What is denied when you gave everything? It does not disappear into nothing. It accumulates. It waits. And when the time is right, when you have grown strong enough to hold it without breaking, it returns. Not as a thing itself, but as the energy it carried, as the lesson it contained, as the strength it forged inside you. You're standing at the edge of that return, Sagittarius. And you may not see it yet. You may not feel it in any concrete way, but it is there, in the small shifts, in the way certain thoughts no longer haunt you the way they used to, in the way you can look back at old wounds and feel something other than raw pain, in the way you are beginning, just barely, to imagine that maybe, just maybe, there is still something good waiting for you. That feeling, that fragile beginning of hope, that is the first sign, that is the crack in the door. And what is on the other side is already pushing through. Now, there is something else you need to know. And this part is harder to hear, because it involves someone who is still carrying you in the corners of their mind. Someone who believed they could walk away clean, could close a chapter, could move on as if you were just another name in a long list of names. They tried. They really did. They told themselves stories. They built narratives that made sense. They explained to themselves why it ended, why it had to end, why staying would have been impossible. And for a while, those stories worked. They went about their days. They smiled at the right times. They filled their hours with noise and movement and distraction. And they almost convinced themselves that the feeling was gone. But it was not gone. It never left. It only went underground. And late at night, when all the noise stopped, when the distractions faded, when they were left alone with the one person they could not lie to themselves, your name returned, your face returned. The memory of your presence, the way you made them feel without trying, the way you saw through every mask they wore, it all came rushing back. And they realized in those quiet, unbearable moments that they made a mistake, not a small one, not the kind that fades with time. The kind that changes everything. The kind that makes them wonder who they would be now if they had chosen differently. This person is moving toward a reckoning, Sagittarius. They are reaching the point where pretending is no longer possible, where the gap between what they have and what they lost becomes too wide to ignore. And they will do something. They will reach out, not with polished words, not with easy explanations, but with something raw, something honest. Something that admits, finally, that they were wrong, that they were scared, that they did not know how to hold something as real as what you offered. And when that moment comes, you will feel it. You will feel the pull of the past, the memory of what once was, the temptation to wonder if this time could be different. But here is what matters most. You do not need to wait for that moment. You do not need to shape your life around the possibility of their return. You do not need to hold space for someone who walked away from the space you offered. What you need to do is keep walking, keep growing, keep becoming the person you are meant to be. Because whether they return or not, whether they find the courage to speak or remain silent, your path is already unfolding, and it is leading you somewhere far more important than any reunion. It is leading you back to yourself. You spent so much time wondering what you did wrong. You replayed conversations. You dissected moments. You search for the flaw, the mistake, the thing you could have done differently that would have changed the outcome. And in that searching, you turn the blade inward. You made yourself the problem. You decided that if they left, it must have been because you were not enough, not interesting enough, not calm enough, not easy enough, too honest, too intense, too much. And you carry that belief like a stone in your chest, heavy and cold, pressing against your ribs every time you try to breathe. But Sagittarius, listen, you were not rejected because you lack something. You were walked away from because you reflected something. You carry a truth that is alive, not loud, not aggressive, but undeniable. And when someone stands in front of you, truly in front of you, they see themselves more clearly than they ever wanted to. Your presence is a mirror, and not everyone has the courage to look. Some people spent their entire lives avoiding mirrors. They built walls. They created personas. They learned how to move through the world without ever confronting the parts of themselves they buried long ago. And then you arrived. And without trying, without forcing, without even intending to, you became the thing they could not escape. You asked questions they were not ready to answer. You lived in a way that exposed their compromises. You loved without conditions, and that terrified them. Because conditional love is safe. It has rules. It has limits. But the kind of love you offer, the kind that simply exists without needing anything in return, that kind of love demands that the other person be real. And being real is the hardest thing in the world for someone who has spent years pretending. So they left, not because you were too much, but because they were not enough. Not enough courage, not enough honesty, not enough willingness to face what being with you would require. And you cannot hold yourself responsible for their fear. You cannot shrink yourself to make their comfort possible. You cannot dim your light. So they do not have to confront their darkness. That is not love. That is not partnership. That is sacrifice without purpose. And you have sacrificed enough. What is happening now, in this moment, in this quiet unfolding, is that you are being released from the need to make sense of it. You are being freed from the endless loop of questioning. You are being given permission, not by anyone else, but by life itself, to stop carrying the weight of other people's choices. They chose to walk away. That was their decision. And it had nothing to do with your worth, nothing to do with your value, nothing to do with whether you deserved to be chosen. It had everything to do with where they were, who they were, what they were capable of holding. And now, as you stand here on the other side of that pain, you are beginning to see it, not as rejection, but as redirection, not as loss, but as clarity, because the people who cannot walk beside you are not meant to, and holding on to them, try to make them stay, try to prove that you are worth staying for, that only delays the arrival of what is truly meant for you. There are connections waiting, connections that will not require you to explain yourself, connections that will not make you feel like you are too much or not enough, connections that will meet you exactly where you are and say, yes, this is what I've been searching for. Not someone perfect, not someone easy, but someone real, someone whole, someone who knows their own worth and does not need validation to stand tall. And as you move into this new phase, as the energy around you continues to shift and settle, you will notice something profound. The way you relate to yourself is changing. You are no longer looking outward for confirmation. You are no longer measuring your value based on who stays or who leaves. You are beginning to understand that your worth is not something that can be given or taken away. It simply is. It exists independent of opinion, independent of circumstance, independent of whether anyone else recognizes it. And that understanding, Sagittarius, is the foundation of everything that comes next. The disruption you may be feeling, the sense that everything is suddenly unstable, suddenly uncertain, that is not chaos. That is transformation. Life is clearing space. It is removing what no longer fits. It is dismantling structures that were built out of fear, out of obligation, out of belief that you had to accept less than you deserved just to have something. Those structures are falling. And yes, it feels uncomfortable. Yes, it feels like everything is coming apart. But what if it is not coming apart? What if it is coming together? What if everything that is leaving is making room for what has been trying to reach you all along. You may lose things in this process. A job that no longer reflects who you are, a role that you outgrew but kept playing out of habit, a connection that once mattered but now only drains you. Let them go. Do not cling to what is leaving. Do not try to hold together what is meant to fall apart. Trust that what is leaving is not abandoning you. It is releasing you. And in that release, there's freedom. There is breath. There is space for something new to take root. And then Sagittarius, in the space that opens up, in the quiet that follows the storm, you will notice something else. Opportunities. Not the kind you have to chase. Not the kind you have to prove yourself worthy of. The kind that arrive naturally, as if they were waiting for you to be ready. An email, a conversation, a chance meeting that feels like fate. You will feel it in your body. The shift from waiting to receiving, from hoping to knowing, from wondering if anything will ever change to realizing that everything already has. Money will begin to move differently, not in floods, not in sudden windfalls, but in steady currents. You will notice that the struggle, the constant exhausting push to survive, is easing, not because you are working harder, but because you are finally working in alignment. You are no longer forcing. You are no longer compromising your values to make ends meet. You are standing in your truth, and the universe is responding. Doors are opening. Projects are moving forward. Recognition is arriving, and it is not loud. It is not flashy, but it is real, and it stays. This is not luck. This is a result of everything you endured. Every moment you kept going when you wanted to give up. Every time you chose integrity over ease. Every time you trusted that there was something more. Even when you had no evidence. Even when every sign pointed to the opposite. All of that mattered. All of that accumulated. And now it is returning to you, not as a reward, but as a natural consequence. As the balancing of scales. As the restoration of what was always meant to be yours. But there is wisdom required here, Sagittarius. As things begin to shift, as success starts to find you, not everyone will celebrate. Some will smile, but their eyes will tell a different story. Some will ask questions, but their tone will carry doubt. Some will watch from a distance, and their silence will feel heavy. This is not because they wish you harm. It is because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Your freedom reminds them of their confinement. And that discomfort is not yours to manage. You do not need to shrink to make them comfortable. You do not need to downplay your wins to ease their envy. You do not owe anyone an explanation for finally stepping into what you deserve. Hold your dreams close. Speak less about what you are building. Let your results speak. Let your life become the proof. And when the time is right, when what you've been nurturing in silence finally blooms, those who are meant to see it will see it. Those who are meant to celebrate will celebrate. And those who cannot will simply fade into background, not with drama, not with confrontation, just a natural drifting apart. And that, too, is part of the process. Now, in the center of all this transformation, in the heart of this unfolding, there is one more shift happening. And it is the most important one. Love is changing. Not the idea of love, not the fantasy, but the actual lived experience of connection. If you are alone right now, do not mistake it for emptiness. This is preparation. This is a universe clearing the field so that when the right person arrives, there is no clutter, no unresolved pain, no lingering attachments, just open space, clean ground, and a heart that is ready, not because it healed perfectly, but because it learned how to hold both its scars and its softness at the same time. The one who comes will not ask you to prove anything. They will not make you feel like you are auditioning for the role of being loved. They will see you fully, completely, with all your contradictions, all your complexity, all the parts you try to hide from everyone else. And they will not flinch. They will not step back. They will step closer. And in that closeness, you will finally understand what it feels like to be chosen not for what you can offer, but simply for who you are. And if there is someone already in your life, someone who has been circling, someone who has been present but not fully present, the energy now demands clarity. No more half measures. No more waiting. No more wondering where you stand. Truth will surface. Conversations will happen. And whatever is real will solidify. Whatever is illusion will dissolve. This is not cruelty. This is kindness. Because living in uncertainty is its own kind of torture. And you have endured enough torture. What is meant to stay will stay. What is not will leave. And either way you will know. And knowing, even when it hurts, is always better than the endless ache of not knowing. You are stepping out of survival mode, Sagittarius. You are stepping into a way of being where you no longer have to brace yourself against the world, where you no longer have to guard every word, every feeling, every piece of yourself, where you can finally breathe without counting the cost. This is not a fantasy. This is what is happening right now, in real time. And the more you allow it, the more you stop resisting, the more you trust that you are not being set up for another fall, the faster it unfolds. What you are moving toward is not perfection. It is not a life without challenges. It is not a guarantee that nothing will ever hurt again. What you are moving toward is alignment, a life that feels like yours, a life where your choices reflect your values, where your connections nourish rather than drain, where your work matters not just because it pays the bills, but because it engages something real inside you, where love is not a battlefield, but a sanctuary, where you do not have to be anything other than what you are. And that, Sagittarius, is everything. So stand here in this moment and let yourself feel it. Let yourself believe, just a little, that the worst is over, that the long night is ending, that the light you have been waiting for is not coming from somewhere outside you. It has been inside you all along. And now, finally, you are letting it out. You are letting it shine. And the world, in all its strange and perfect timing, is beginning to recognize what it almost lost, what it almost overlooked, what it almost let slip away. You, in all your depth, in all your truth, in all your quiet, unshakable fire. And nothing will ever dim that again. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.